Welcome back to Alien to Me. I am your host, Kay Gray. It is good to be back. I am having a lot of fun with this podcast so far. I hope you guys are too. Stuff off the top. I don't really have any. Krista and I are working on a book. We are starting to write the episodes for Haunted Mitten, premiering on Halloween, so make sure you check out our back catalog. Until then, I have been doing some Patreon things, including 7 Days of Strange, in which I go through a week of some odd news, including James Franco getting stalked by aliens that I did for July. If you're interested, all that stuff is currently on Patreon. We would love to have you. Otherwise, check me out on Instagram at Alien to Me. Krista and I have a few shows coming up. So we will be in Kalamazoo, Michigan for Haunters Against Hate, August 1st and 2nd. We'll have a table there. I don't believe that we're doing any speaking. As you can see, I am super prepared. But you can come say hi, take a look at our merch, maybe get a blind date with a book. And yeah, generally have a good time for a good cause. And then the weekend after that, Krista and I will be at Cap City Paracon in Lansing, Michigan. We have a table there. Come say hi, get pictures, see some really awesome speakers, and enjoy Lansing's first paranormal convention. All right, with that, let's dive back in to the Pascagoula Abduction, Part 2. Parker, whose first name I have unfortunately already forgotten because I did not record this immediately after recording the first one, overwhelmed by the situation, moved back to Laurel to be with his fiancée and escape the chaos. He found work with a drilling company, often putting in 7-day weeks and overtime to keep his mind off the whole ordeal. Been there, my man. Despite trying to stay under the radar, reporters frequently called or showed up at his job to interview him. Like assholes. Holy crap. Parker struggled to adapt to his sudden fame and consistently refused to speak with anyone. He was stunned to see Hickson's face and name plastered everywhere, on television and newspapers, especially since Hickson had initially insisted he wanted no publicity. The shift led Parker to suspect that Hickson was the one who had leaked the story. On October 31st, 1973, 2 days before his appearance on the Dick Cavett Show, Parker was scheduled to appear on the show as well, but canceled at last minute because of health issues. The Greenville Advocate reported that Hickson had taken and passed a polygraph test the day before on October 30th. Welp, unfortunately, that doesn't really mean shit. The test was conducted by Pendleton Detectives Incorporated. The decision to undergo the polygraph was financially motivated. While the media were willing to pay Hickson and Parker for the story, they demanded certain guarantees, including a polygraph test, before agreeing to proceed with the deal. Parker was scheduled to appear on the show as well, but canceled his appearance due to health issues. Colingo firmly refused to cover the cost of the polygraph test, as his frickin' right, and took matters into his own hands. After reaching out to several firms, who either required fees or declined because Hickson was not being accused of any crime, or simply didn't want to be associated with flying saucers, Colingo turned to his own network for help. He eventually got in touch with Scott Glasgow, an amateur sleuth with no official qualifications, who ran the agency. Oh no, we have another one. Glasgow administered the polygraph test and concluded that Hickson was telling the truth. However, it should be noted that Glasgow reportedly lacked the necessary certifications or expertise to conduct a proper polygraph examination. This is definitely a thing in this case. A bunch of people doing things they have no business doing. Sigh. 2 years later, in October 1975, Hickson was invited to speak at a UFO conference in Fort Smith, Arkansas. The event organizer, William Pitts, asked if Hickson would be willing to take another polygraph test. Hickson agreed and flew to Arkansas for his lecture. However, when it came time for the test, this time under the supervision of qualified experts, Hickson backed out at the last minute after Colingo advised him not to. Not to take the test? Or not to back out? Probably not to take the test. Ugh. Hickson would ultimately fire Kalingo, accusing him of only being motivated by money. Quote unquote, he just wanted to make a buck. He seemed to be doing okay at first. Because yeah, if you get invited on television and they're like, nah, but you have to take a polygraph test first, but we're not going to pay for it. Absolutely not. You're a TV studio. Pay for the polygraph test. It can't be that much. Remember, kids, never do anything for free. Ever. Despite the fact that I am absolutely recording this podcast for free. Don't do anything that... Yeah, I don't have better advice than that. Oh well. A month after the incident, on November 9th, 1973, Rain Ryan, love it, R-A-Y-N-E, Rain Ryan, a 42-year-old fisherman, reported to the Coast Guard that he had been followed near the mouth of the Pascagoula River, not too far from where Hickson and Parker had their encounter. He said a small glowing object had been following his boat for about an hour. According to him, it looked kind of like a tiny submarine. That's adorable. About the size of 3 small fishing boats put together. That's not... I mean, yeah, I guess for a submarine that's tiny, but I imagined like a pocket-sized submarine. That would have been super cute. At one point, he hit it with an oar, and it felt hard, like metal. I like this man already. Coast Guardsmen pursued the object for about half an hour before it suddenly vanished. Then they returned to base and filed an official report. Later on, an official suggested the USO may have been a school of fish or, quote-unquote, shrimp carrying an impression of phosphorus. I don't even know what the fuck that means. It means they were reflecty shrimp that, when hit with an oar, feel like metal? Why would the shrimp be reflecty other than there's probably a ton of phosphorus in that river at the time? Okay, but still, that doesn't explain the metal thing. Also, fun note that you here on Alien to Me finally get to hear. Everyone else in the world knows my story, but the shape of the UFO that I saw when I was like 8 or 9 maybe, was submarine shaped. It was, or what I think is called cigar shaped. Both are fine because it's the same shape. Let me tell you, it was not shrimp carrying an impression of phosphorus. I did not see a bunch of shrimp in the sky being all reflecty. Although now that I think about it, a little tank of reflecting shrimp sounds adorable. Do they make shrimp in that flavor? In that style? If you've never had a shrimp tank, I highly recommend a shrimp tank. They're so much fun. Anyway, enough about shrimp. In December 1973, Hickson convinced Parker to join him on the Mike Douglas Show. Because back in the day, every single show, if you had a show, it was named after you. Sally Jesse Raphael, Maury Povich, Geraldo Rivera. These were all of these shows named after you. You get a show, you make sure people know your name. Parker recalled feeling deeply uncomfortable throughout the entire experience. The country boy felt like a fish out of water, baffled by these strange city folks who didn't know what the fuck cheese and grits were, confused as to why the TV studio's green room was actually blue, and uneasy about the idea of having makeup applied, worried it would make him look like and I am very much quoting here, a drag queen. It won't, honey. Just put on the makeup. You'll look so much better on camera. Also, this Angelino absolutely knows what cheese and grits are, and it's my favorite breakfast of all time. So, I don't know, take that, person that I'm not actually talking to. During the show, Hickson revealed for the first time that the lights inside the UFO were so intense that they caused him an eye injury lasting several days, a detail he had never previously mentioned to the police, military, or researchers. As noted earlier, doctors at Keesler Air Force Base found no signs of injury of any kind during their examination. After the show, Hickson tried to convince Parker to do more TV appearances with him. Parker declined, exhausted and fed up. He just wanted to be left alone, like Edward Scissorhands. Aw, poor boy. We love a Scissorhands. Also, aren't like eye injuries caused by UFO light a thing as well? Don't you get like isn't there like a special kind of conjunctivitis or pink eye that you get from UFOs? which actually just seems really embarrassing and like adding insult to injury. So not only have you had this encounter that nobody is going to believe, but now you have pink eye from it. That's embarrassing. Hickson seemed to lean into his newfound celebrity, making appearances on radio and TV shows like The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And to tell the truth, he partnered with hypnotists and psychics for public events, charging between $5 and $10 per ticket, and released a record narrating his experience, which you can listen to on YouTube. A stark contrast to his earlier claim that he wanted to avoid the spotlight. Yeah, it doesn't seem like this man wants to avoid the spotlight at all. It seems like he's really, really happy to be under that spotlight. I have a feeling that spotlight is going to give him pink eye. During his TV appearances, Hickson contradicted himself multiple times and kept embellishing details about the encounter. At one point, he said the craft was 9 feet long, then later it was 15 feet, and at another time 20 feet. He also gave inconsistent accounts of the time of the event, saying it happened at 7, 8, or 9 p.m. As for the creatures, Hickson's descriptions changed over time too. In some interviews, he said they had small round mouths, sometimes no mouths, which contradicted the small slits he originally described. Additionally, in some versions of the story, he claimed the craft was directly above the water, which contradicted earlier accounts where he clearly stated it appeared behind them, hovering above the ground. His drawings of the craft were also incredibly inconsistent, sometimes depicting it as oval-shaped, round, or even saucer-shaped. Parker had the same problem, except in his case, he couldn't decide whether the craft had windows or not. In some articles, both of them even described the beings having red skin. I talked last time about the human mind being really, really bad at detail and really, really bad at remembering. The Hickson thing is definitely different. Especially, like, the Hickson thing is different. I think he is contradicting himself too often when he could go back to his original story, you know? He's told it enough that he should be able to tell the difference. Not remembering something small, like if the craft had windows or not, seems a little bit easier for me to buy. I can see how after the fact, especially long after the fact, you would not remember a detail like that. Did it have windows or not? If it did, how many windows did it have? Am I making too many excuses for Parker? I might be. I may have to apologize to you all at the end of this. Bear with me. If you already know the story and you're yelling at your radio? Okay. Your phone, your car, if you're yelling at me right now, hold your horses, my friend. Yell at me later or send me an email. Despite these discrepancies, ufologist and sci-fi writer Kevin Randall, who has been milking the Roswell crash for over 30 years and has written a dozen books about it, each one providing new, exciting details, and witnesses who had an uncle who knew a guy who heard from someone's roommate, who knew a guy who told them that he was there in 1947 and saw the aliens, argues in the Encyclopedia of Extraterrestrial Encounters that, quote, these changes seem to be in response to criticisms and appear to be an attempt to smooth out rough spots in the story. But to me, that just signals Hickson's defensiveness, a result of years of ridicule, not proof of initial hoaxing, end quote. I'm kind of on his side, actually. I don't know who Kevin Randall is, other than what I have just been told. So, we'll figure that out later. But I think it's probably a mixture of both. I think that Hickson really loves the limelight. I think that he loves all of the attention that he's getting. But I do think that there's probably some bits that he didn't want to talk about that maybe he will now that he knows that he's not going to get teased for it or ridiculed for it. Maybe. But there's a lot. There's a lot about his story so far that's telling me that he got a taste of attention and he really loves it. Meanwhile, Parker tried his hardest to move on, but the constant harassment from reporters and people on the street became too much for him to handle. He didn't kill himself, did he? I don't remember what I read last time. The stress took its toll, and he suffered an emotional breakdown, the first of many, leading to a 3-week stay in a mental institution where he was treated for psychosis. Oof. Oh, that poor man. Oh, a 1970s mental institution? After you've seen a UFO? Oh, that was probably not the best time in the world. Oh, I'm so sorry. After his release, Parker disappeared from the public eye for a while. In 1974, he enlisted in the Marine Corps, but was quickly discharged after completing his basic training for quote-unquote medical reasons, allegedly related to the abduction. Probably because he just wasn't mentally sound enough at that time to handle it. It was like a year later. In 1976, the two men underwent hypnosis once again. This time with John Krause, a Detroit-based, member of the American Institute of Hypnosis and the American Association of Professional Hypnologists. Phew, Lord. At the time, Krause was the secretary of the MAF. Incredible, it's the MAF. Krause was the secretary of the MAF and also taught hypnosis to doctors, dentists, and other professionals across Michigan. What does a dentist need hypnosis for? What does a dentist need it for? Unless you're Orin from Little Shop of Horrors. Doctors, I can kind of make the stretch as to what they might need that for, but what do dentists need it for? We're gonna stay away from that rabbit hole, because I don't think that I could use any more human suffering taken up in my brain right now. During the hypnosis session, yet another detail emerged. The morning after the incident, while at work, Hickson noticed blood on his arm and discovered a small puncture wound, which had somehow been missed by the doctors who examined him at the airbase that day. Okay. Hickson later explained that he didn't tell anyone about it because he believed it was the result of a work incident where he was hit by a piece of steel. He works where does he work now? Does he still work at the shipyard? Ooh, I'm bad at this. Speaking of memory being terrible. But yeah, he works at a very physical place. It's probably just that. Additionally, another detail came up. Hickson recalled being so disturbed by the sight of some kind of retractable ear on one of the creatures that he burst out crying. That was not in anything so far. In an interview published in the October 12, 1981 edition of The Sun, a Biloxi newspaper, Hickson claims that he was contacted telepathically by aliens and told he would be one of the chosen 12, a prestigious group of UFO contactees who will help them reveal their presence to humanity. Oh no, we've entered this realm. I'm going to say we've entered the New Age realm. And that's a whole other can of worms. That sucks. Great. Why not? Screw it. We're here now. He adds that these revelations helped him cope with the experience. Quote, "It's eased my mind. I can go ahead with my everyday work, be with my family, and not worry about those things. I know what's going to happen now, so that burden is off my mind." End quote. As for Parker, Hickson reveals he would not be among the 12, claiming the aliens had tried and failed to reach out to him. Quote, "He knows that now. They don't bother him anymore." End quote. Sure they don't. Those memories will forever. The strong religious overtones aren't uncommon in contactee accounts. Most contactees report being told they are the chosen one, or that they'll play some important role in some vague, catastrophic future event that never actually comes. Except for Keel and Mothman. If you have not ever read the Mothman prophecies and you're really into high strangeness and weird shit, oh my god, don't watch the movie. That is not the same at all. I mean, watch the movie if you want, but just know that that is all fiction, my friend. Read the Mothman prophecies by John Keel. It is mind-altering in a very good way, I promise. Some contactees, even develop a messiah complex and, in a few cases, even go on to form cults. Oh my god, I can't wait to talk about those ones. I want to talk about UFO cults. Meanwhile, poor Parker's life was falling apart. The constant pressure of the media invading his personal life put a strain on his relationship with Wynette and the two eventually got divorced. Oh, that breaks my heart. Oh, man, I feel so bad for him so far. 2 years later, in 1983, Hickson published UFO Contact at Pascagoula, written with the help of William Mendez, a Michigan. Why is it always Michigan? There's so much UFO stuff that comes back to Michigan. We're connected in it somehow in some way, in all of it. Theory off the top of my head, it is because we are surrounded by 3 Great Lakes. That's got to have something to do with it, right? Maybe. We'll keep that in mind for later. Sorry. Hickson published UFO Contact at Pascagoula, written with the help of William Mendez, a Michigan college professor and UFO enthusiast who became interested in the story and convinced Hickson to write a book about it. As mentioned in the intro, in the last episode, Hickson's version of events is pretty bare bones. He recounts the events with a lot of dramatic flair and inner monologues. The whole thing is interwoven with war stories from his time in Korea. Most of the book is made up of transcripts from several interviews and hypnosis sessions. As a result, the book ends up feeling less like Hickson telling his story and more like a hardcore UFO nerd trying to prove his favorite contactee is legit and that there's no way that the whole thing was a hoax. I swear. However, Hickson recounts 3 interesting encounters he's had since that fateful night of October 1973. While on a squirrel hunting trip, Hickson claims that he received a telepathic message from a craft hovering above a clearing about 25 feet away from him. Quote, "We mean you no harm. We mean no one any harm. You may communicate with us later. You have endured. You have been chosen. There is no need for fear. We will communicate again." End quote. Creepy. Upon the craft's departure, he says the fear he had been carrying since the abduction was suddenly gone. Under hypnosis, however, he recalls being terrified and taking off running like Scooby-Doo for his safety. Yeah. I mean, that could go either way, right? That would be absolutely terrifying. But there are some folks that do have encounters with, insert deity here, right? God, the Christian God, a lot of times, that definitely have their fear taken away from them, or their fear dissipates from them after they've had this, like, quote unquote talk with their deity, right? There's reassurance in there. There's stability in here. There's the offer of help in there. I can definitely see him taking this as truth and it calming his fears. On the other hand, I can also, if this actually happened, I can also see basically just muttering to myself, "Oh, not again," and then running away terrified. Either way. In the second encounter, Hickson recalls being awakened in the middle of the night by the sound of a dog barking outside. He got up to check and saw the dog running away, as if it was chased by something. "Please let the dog be okay." He then received another vague telepathic message. Quote, "You must tell the world we mean no harm. Your world needs help. We will help in the future before it's too late. You are not prepared to understand yet. We will return again soon." End quote. Under hypnosis, he describes squatting down and feeling a presence all around him. When asked about the message, he says he cannot repeat it, as if something is preventing him from doing so. The experience unsettles him enough that he asks to be pulled out of hypnosis immediately. Oof, that's crazy. Okay, hold on. So he recounts these encounters in his book. My question is, did he only remember these encounters through hypnosis? Or did he remember these encounters or talk about these encounters and then, after having spoken them aloud, gone under hypnosis? Because the answer to that greatly changes whether or not I think these happened. Hopefully I find out. The last encounter took place on Mother's Day in 1974, when he and his family were driving down the highway and saw a craft coming down next to their car. Hickson felt the beings wanted him to get out and meet them, but his wife and children, terrified, screaming, and crying, as they should have been, begged him to stay in the car, fearing he was going to be taken away. He stayed, and the aliens disappointedly told him there would be another time before taking off. We're not mad, we're just disappointed that you didn't leave your entire family behind and come in our cool spaceship so we could tell you messages. God, they're needy. Oh my God. Over the years, Hickson added new details to his story, claiming he saw a glowing screen inside the craft and felt the presence of unseen beings he believed were the ones controlling the Dr. Zoidberg robot-like creatures that abducted them. In the 80s, he even produced a documentary about the case called In Contact, which was only available through mail order, with Hickson personally selling and mailing copies for $10. Can we get a copy of that, though? I'll see what I can find. Around the same time, in late 1987, Hickson and Parker reunited when they became the subject of a series of live shows aired on Mississippi Community TV that ran for 15 episodes. The two discussed various hot topics related to UFOs and took phone calls from viewers. During an episode, Parker revealed that he believed the creatures who abducted them were of demonic origin. In another one, he claimed that he had been contacted by these beings through his dreams. After the show ran its course, the two drifted apart again. Demonic origin. What are you, our vice president? Good lord. Whatever helps him sleep at night, I guess, actually. In a lecture in 1991, Hickson claimed that the aliens had told him communism and nuclear threats would no longer exist by 1992. How did that work out for him? He also said they predicted that 32 people would be chosen to have contact with aliens, and that after this, there would be no doubt about their existence. Instead, Charles Hickson passed away from a heart attack in 2011 at the age of 80. He died penniless, but stuck to his story for the most part until the very end. For years, the story relied on his testimony as Parker consistently maintained, almost like a mantra, that he'd been unconscious throughout the incident. But in 1993, things took an unexpected turn. Man, those aliens were just fucking with him, huh? Oh, yeah, you know. Communism, nuclear war. Nah, that shit won't exist in the 90s. Oh, wait. We were all just terrified here in the year of our Lord 2026 that nukes would be brought into play again by the crazy people running our government. Cool. So, for the 20th anniversary of the encounter, Parker, who up to this point had been rumored to be dead, came out of hiding and stepped back into the spotlight at the 5th annual National New Age Alien Agenda and Cosmic Conspiracies Conference in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm sorry? Please tell me this is what became Contact in the Desert, because that's a way cooler name than National New Age Alien Agenda and Cosmic Conspiracies Conference. There, he revealed he had been keeping a secret for 20 years. He didn't lose consciousness that night. Oh, man. Parker, no. Quote, "I saw no reason to trust anyone with my experience," he said. "There was a lot that went on that night when I was alone with the creatures that I've never spoken to another living soul about," end quote. Due to, quote-unquote, pending circumstances, Parker felt it was time to break his code of silence and tell the world, or at least the dozens of people in attendance, what happened that fateful night. He revealed that he had a previous experience with one of the aliens dating back from his childhood, who told him about their science, philosophy, and ultimate end goal while he was attempting to pee in the woods during a camping trip with his dad and Hickson. These aliens are just like a bunch of asshole teenagers who are out trolling Earthlings, huh? Oh my god, that kid's trying to pee. Let's scare the shit out of him. Or scare the pee back in him. Okay. Parker, honey, I had such hopes. Hook, line, and sinker. In 2018, the town of Pascagoula unveiled a commemorative plaque marking the abduction. Parker, who was now battling cancer, attended the event. He wisely chose this moment to step back into the public eye and promote his new book, The Poorly Edited Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, My Story. Just so you know, that is 2 subheadings. We don't need 2 subheadings. Parker, who'd remarried Waynette Parker back in 1996. Oh, okay, good. I wanted them to, have a happy ending. said she was the one who convinced him to write his story and set the record straight once and for all. In it, Parker drops a bombshell. He reveals that he and Hickson had agreed to lie about him blacking out to avoid a media frenzy. If that's true, the secret tape loses a lot of its punch, as on the recording, Parker can be heard repeatedly insisting he blacked out. And if Hickson was supposedly in on the lie, why would Parker need to convince him at all? And also, I still don't think either of them were good enough liars or actors to be able to fake the fear in that tape. Like at all. Hickson previously served as a constable and was likely familiar with interrogation procedures, so there's a good chance they knew, or at least suspected, they were being recorded. Parker contradicts himself repeatedly throughout the book, especially when it comes to his supposed straight-edge lifestyle. He presents himself almost like Ian McKay of Minor Threat, claiming he never drank, and then goes on to describe multiple instances of drinking anyway. I don't understand the Ian McKay reference. I'll look it up later. Oh well. Am I failing? Is this a movie thing that I'm failing you on again? His account also paints a very different picture of the events than what we're used to. Instead of the clean-cut, calm, stoic mentor figure Hickson portrays himself as, Parker describes him as a booze hound, complaining about his family throughout the trip, and so intoxicated at one point that he nearly fell in the water while trying to get a look at the UFO that night. He goes on to describe a strange incident that took place in the early 90s, where he lost about 15 hours while fishing on Cat Island, which better have cats on it. I want to go to Cat Island, if it indeed has cats on it. Sorry, what are we talking about? UFOs? Returning home puzzled and dehydrated. The next day, he confided in his friend Bill Robertson from Channel 25, an avid believer in alien abductions. Robertson persuaded him to attend a UFO conference in Tampa, Florida, believing Parker could find someone there who might help him make sense of his missing time experience. Lo and behold, that person turned out to be none other than Bud Hopkins, the absolute worst possible outcome. For those who don't know, like me, we're learning together after all, New York-based artist Bud Hopkins was widely regarded as the world's foremost expert on the abduction phenomenon, and still is revered to this day by the UFO community as a holy figure and fearless crusader for the truth. I don't know that that's true. In the year of our Lord 2026, I think Bud Hopkins has been forgotten. I know very few basics on the guy. I don't think in our modern world he is still around. I haven't heard any of these like new UFO bro types talking about anybody older than like Bob Lazar or Bill Cooper. I don't think people really know who Bud Hopkins is anymore. That might be a good thing. I'm not sure. So, however, like most abduction researchers, we're not gonna go with most. Like some abduction researchers, Hopkins, who painted abstract shapes for a living, I don't understand what that means. I need context. The hell do you mean he painted abstract shapes for a living? Was he an artist? I think we have a Bud Hopkins episode coming up, so I'm really hoping all of this stuff makes sense to me later. I just gotta go with it for now. He was not a trained clinician, surprise, surprise, and had no business putting people under hypnosis, especially people seemingly dealing with repressed sexual trauma in the first place. Oh no. Oh, what do you mean sexual trauma? Uh-oh. Oh, I don't think I like what's coming. In the UFO world, as you will find out listening to this podcast, there are no standards for education, professional contact, or even basic common sense. That's one of the points of this podcast, is to hopefully point that out and get things to change. Hopkins' obsession with the phenomenon stemmed from two personal experiences. A childhood encounter with short, pale beings with black eyes in his bedroom, which actually sounds like Black-Eyed Kids. B.E.K. the Becks, which he only mentioned privately to a few people, and seeing a UFO while driving to a cocktail party hosted by pretentious artsy-fartsy, cork-sniffing fucks in Cape Cod in 1964. Dang. Tell him how you really feel. Take that, people in Cape Cod. But it was the North Hudson Park case that really kickstarted his quote-unquote holy quest to convince the world that gray aliens were harvesting our genetic material to create a hybrid race intended to replace humanity. Already, this is my third episode, and already I have said some sentences that I thought that I would never say in my life. So, that's fun. Right? That seems cool. Honestly, I'm looking at the world of 2026 and I'm like, anytime now, dude. Like, can we get to that point? Or are we already at that point where there are a hybrid race and they just happen to be running the fucking US government? I do not want any of you to take that seriously. That is a joke. There's no gray hybrids in the government. There was that one dude who was absolutely wearing a high-tech skin mask on his television interview. I still don't know what that's about, though, okay? It's probably not alien stuff. It's probably like stupid CIA replacing people with their own people stuff. It's always the CIA. Where were we? What's happening? Who am I? Oh. In 1975, George Obarski, a badass 72-year-old Manhattan liquor store owner, was driving through North Bergen, New Jersey around 3 a.m. when his radio started to distort. Moments later, he saw a saucer-shaped craft land in front of him. Small, hooded beings described resembling children in snowsuits, or, as I'm going to picture in my head, Jawas, emerged from it, moving with the speed of quote-unquote kids running down a fire escape. I assume that means fast. I assume when he says that, he means the building is on fire. Otherwise, I don't know, they're just being kids on a fire escape, man. There's not a lot of places to play in a crowded big city, okay? The beings quickly gathered soil samples, completely ignoring Obarski, then climbed back into the craft and disappeared as fast as they'd arrived. Obarski, who had been robbed at gunpoint more times than he cared to count, was left deeply shaken by the incident. So much so that once he got home in the morning, he closed all the blinds, curled up into the fetal position, and hid under his blanket like a child. I would too. Yeah, we're not going to blame him for that. A friend aware of Hopkins' interest in UFOs told him the story. Intrigued, Hopkins tracked down and interviewed Obarski, even finding a night doorman from a nearby building who claimed to have seen the craft land, corroborating the encounter. That's actually pretty cool. Not Obarski's deep trauma part of it, but it being corroborated, it happening, people knowing about it. Despite the seemingly harmless and straightforward nature of the event, Hopkins was convinced that something far more sinister had taken place. He speculated that Obarski had been abducted and experimented on by aliens. God damn it. He even tried to get him to undergo hypnosis to dig up hidden details, but the old man smartly flat out refused after hearing the kind of stuff that tends to come out of those sessions. It is nothing good. This became a recurring theme throughout Hopkins' investigative career. Over time, he became the go-to figure for alien abduction cases, though his methods and conclusions were often controversial. Critics have argued that Hopkins either implanted or encouraged these narratives, rather than allowing for genuine memories to surface. Hopkins went on to write multiple books on the subject and was notorious for tossing aside any case that didn't align with his theories. He also collaborated with high-profile abductees like Whitley Strieber and mentored David Jacobs, American history professor at Temple University, who would later gain infamy for his unethical practices, such as conducting hypnosis sessions over MSN Messenger, asking a patient to send him her dirty underwear for research, convinced they were covered in alien DNA, and going on paranoid rants about alien hybrids trolling him on Messenger. What the fuck? I'm speechless. Did this man go to jail? Who is this man? Will I learn about him later? Oh, I hope that he was reported and arrested for that fucking shit. Ooh, he sucks. So, with Bud Hopkins's quote-unquote help, Parker recalled being floated inside a craft and approached by a female alien with dark brown eyes. He also regained full memory of what had transpired during the 1973 abduction. This new version of events closely mirrored Hickson's story, but with many embellishments straight out of Hopkins' playbook. Under hypnosis, Parker described he was strapped to a glass table and approached by an ugly female alien. I feel like that we didn't need to include that little descriptor. This poor woman. By a female alien with short curly blue hair, a creature he claimed to have encountered multiple times throughout his childhood, once during that camping trip where he was trying to pee. She was furious that he hadn't come alone and threatened to kill him. How the fuck was he supposed to know? You didn't tell him that you were supposed to meet him there alone. This wasn't a date. He had the impression she was wearing a mask to hide her alien features. Maybe she would have been prettier without it. Oh God. Okay, I read ahead. Never read ahead. According to Parker, she forced her abnormally long, skinny fingers up his nostrils, which he later changed to his throat in subsequent interviews. Oh my God. Like, oh, I feel it in my throat. And let out a growl resembling the mating call of an alligator. Side note, if you haven't heard that, it is dope. It's like a really deep rumbling. It's, alligators and crocodiles can, like, rumble at such a low frequency and, like, make water dance on their backs. It's super cool. You guys should look that up. It's awesome. Sorry. Tangent. I'm trying to get out of this scenario as quickly and with as much of my mind intact as possible. She then cut up his lips and sliced into his hand. With Parker recalling the sound of his blood dripping onto the floor. She inserted an object, possibly an implant, and after the procedure, he noticed his hand had inexplicably healed. She took his clothes off but struggled to do so, hurting Parker in the process. This is another recurring beat in abduction stories. These supposedly super advanced beings, being capable of interstellar or even interdimensional travel, suddenly act like complete fucking idiots when confronted with very basic things like human clothes and bed sheets. Okay, I'm going to defend them for a second here, because the other day I tried to put on a dress that I have worn no fewer than like 50 times in my life, and I put it on wrong, and I was stuck for a decent 30 seconds. And I wear clothes, human clothes, every day. So you know what? Maybe aliens can't figure out bed sheets, okay? If somebody out there can actually fold a fitted sheet, I don't know what to tell you. You're a freaking superhuman. You have a superpower, okay? Don't judge them for being bad at stuff. Come on, man. Parker was then injected with something hot into his hand, which gave him the impression that his blood was being replaced with molten lead. Oh my God. In another session, Parker recalled the being injecting something into his penis and gums and bragging about how she could easily take over our world without firing a single shot. After the examination ended, the blue-haired alien untied Parker and left the room for a minute, allowing Parker to put his clothes back on. He noticed a mirror and had the unsettling feeling that he was being watched, either by people or some other creatures behind it. When the alien returned, an enraged Parker grabbed her by the neck and began repeatedly smashing her face into the mirror, causing some kind of black goo to ooze from her ears. Suddenly, one of the stupid-looking, goofy Dr. Zoidberg aliens, or as I'm calling them, sentient shawarma, rushed in and injected him with something that paralyzed him. In retaliation, the female alien scratched his face and eyes and tore off his fingernails, seemingly killing him in the process. Following this violent scene, Parker describes an out-of-body experience where he felt his soul being pulled toward a bright light where he saw angels. The sight disturbed the aliens, who cowered in fear. Parker tried to go toward the light, but felt pulled back with a strange sense that God himself gave him the holy mission to hunt down these creatures individually like Boba Fett. If you wanted Star Wars references constantly, you came to the right podcast. The blue-haired alien, clearly disturbed by the divine presence of the Almighty, fled the room in fear. Left alone, Parker was overcome by a sense of peace. Eventually, the aliens who had abducted him and Hickson returned and carried him back outside to the craft. Despite these wild claims, no blood, black goo, or scratches were found on his body or clothes afterward. Also, the whole incident contradicts an interview he gave in the Mississippi Press on October 19th, 1973, where he says, quote, "I want to emphasize to the people, please don't shoot at these things. They don't mean us any harm. I believe if they come back, I could face them and try to communicate with them." End quote. It is widely accepted among experts that hypnosis is an unreliable memory recovery tool. No way. However, this hasn't stopped UFO researchers from using it. Sigh. Many still use it as a convenient way to extract compelling stories for their books or documentaries. Thanks to Carol Rainey, Hopkins' ex-wife, we now know for a fact that Hopkins was nothing more than an incompetent, gullible fool who led or outright manipulated people during hypnosis to make their stories fit his narrative and should have stuck to painting intricate shapes. I still don't know what that means. I'll look it up afterwards. Maybe I'll post something to social media about it. The evil blue-haired alien Parker described was never mentioned by Hickson. I have some thoughts about this that I don't know. I really hope that are not correct. I will save them for the end. Y'all might be thinking what I'm thinking, and I don't want to be thinking it, but that's unfortunately the world we live in. Hooray! Following his return to the public eye, Parker gave numerous interviews where, much like his old friend Hickson before him, often embellished details or struggled to keep his story straight. In one interview, he claimed to have undergone basically the same examination as Hickson, involving the same floating ball instead of the nightmarish encounter straight out of an Eli Roth movie with the violent blue-haired alien. See, that reference I get. The following year, he released a follow-up, Pascagoula, The Story Continues, New Evidence and New Witnesses. My guy, you need to slow down with these subheadings. One is fine. Published by UK UFO researcher Philip Mantle, whose name sounds very familiar, but I'm not sure why, who also published Parker's previous book and now holds the rights to Hickson, and would go on to write several books on the subject, presents, as the title suggests, new evidence, no way, including dozens of new witness testimonies from people who claim they saw a UFO that night and only came forward half a century later, as well as an alleged picture of the puncture wounds taken by James Harder, welcome back to the podcast, sir, when he examined the two men in 1973, showing what looks like fishhook scratches. The book also features a transcript from a hypnosis session Parker did with Betty Hill's niece, Kathleen Hardin, because of course Betty Hill's niece got involved, for the book in which he seems to mix up, I don't know what that means either. I don't know anything about Kathleen Hardin. I only know the Betty and Barney Hill story. That's all I got. I don't know what it means. What do you mean, of course she got involved? We'll figure that out later too. There's so much. I have so many questions in episode 3. So, the book features a transcript from a hypnosis session Parker did for the book in which he seems to mix up the 1973 abduction with the 1992 one and adds a few new details he'd never mentioned before. While he was bashing the alien's head against the mirror, he had a vision of future apocalyptic events. He revealed that after his abduction, he was covered in blood, both his and the aliens, and disposed of his clothes once he got home because they smelled bad. That's not true. Yeah. If he's talking about the 73 abduction, as mentioned earlier, no blood, scratches, or anything was found. And he went several places, including the police, before he went home. I think they would have noticed him being covered in shit. If he's talking about the 92 incident, in his previous book, he makes no mention of that at all. His wife would have surely said something if he'd reappeared after missing all day, covered in blood and black goo, like Bruce Campbell in Evil Dead 2. You know. It seems he had a habit of getting rid of clothes that could have potentially contained alien DNA. So, yeah, that didn't happen. The big smoking gun, however, is a new witness, Maria Blair. Blair claims she and her husband were sitting in their car, coincidentally a Pontiac like Parker saw that night. I do get to learn more about the car. Except a different color, which, again, human memory, messed up. It easily changes color of things. on the other side of the river the night of the abduction. She claims they observed a craft with bright lights circling above the river, moving back and forth as if it couldn't decide where to go for about half an hour. Intrigued, they got out of their car to get a better look. Those people are insane, and also the exact same thing I would do. As they walked down the pier, Blair recalls seeing a strange gray man come out of the water right by her. She shrugged it off, and the two returned to their car. That was all she could initially remember. What? Oh, look, there's a weird gray dude just coming straight out of the water that I haven't seen in the past half hour. That's fine. I'll go back to the car. Why? I mean, that happens a lot in paranormal encounters. Fear doesn't really happen, and recognition that anything super strange going on is not felt in the moment. Like, you don't really know that weird shit's happening. You kind of just take it in stride. You freak out later when your brain catches up. But in the moment, a lot of people during paranormal experiences report being very calm, or like if they had been woken up, they go back to sleep really easily. I have plenty of anecdotes for myself about that. 45 years later, on his deathbed, her husband dropped a bomb. He revealed that he was abducted that night. He described being dragged aboard the craft by tall gray beings he avoided looking at, and being examined by what he called a doctor. Shortly after his passing, Blair got in touch with Mantle to share her story, and he arranged for her to go under hypnotic regression, of course. Oh my God, please stop doing it. Stop. Good Lord. Under hypnosis, Blair remembered being taken almost immediately after Hickson and Parker were returned by the same craft and beings, and going through your typical alien abduction scenario. The aliens took blood samples, injected her with something, took her eggs, and inseminated her with an alien embryo, leading to her to believe her oldest daughter might be a human-alien hybrid. Spoiler alert, she is not. The book also includes 2 previously unreleased transcripts from a hypnotic regression session with Hickson, conducted by Bud Hopkins, which suggest Hickson might have been abducted when he was a child. This just keeps spiraling down and down and down and down. Oh my God. This just keeps going further and further into fully unbelievable territory. I cannot fully express to you how much I hate hypnotic regression. I'm going to do an episode strictly about hypnotic regression, and we are just going to go through scientific paper after scientific paper. I'll do it. I'm crazy. As expected, Hopkins' approach comes across as questionable. Instead of guiding Hickson, he steers the session by framing his experience in a very specific way. What starts as a vague, fragmented childhood memory, Hickson trying to recall how he hurt his ankle, whether he jumped off of a tree or a cart, gets reframed into something completely different under Hopkins' guidance. He recalls being outside in the woods near his childhood home, seeing a craft come down and being pinned down by 2 pale beings with large heads and eyes. He goes on and describes being injected in the leg and having something implanted in his arm. At one point, he even has Hickson imagine the event as if it were happening to someone else, imagining the UFO as a tractor to help him detach and relive it indirectly. It's very confusing. I will take your word for it. Thank you so much for reading that so that I don't have to. I don't know how your brain handles just so much garbage. But thank you. Thank you so much. Despite the contradictions and embellishments, Parker still comes across as the more genuine of the two. Even in his books, with their countless inconsistencies, absurd claims, and the influence of Bud Hopkins, you get the impression he was genuinely shaken by whatever happened that night in October 1973. Whatever the cause, supernatural or not, it deeply affected him, and he seemingly never recovered from the events that transpired that night. Calvin Parker sadly lost his battle with cancer on August 4th, 2023, before he could fulfill the mission he believed God had given him to kill all of the aliens. This is where the story of Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker probably should have ended. Oh no. but Philip Mantle seems almost hyper fixated on milking the story for as long as he breathes. In the year and a half it took to research and write this episode. No, that's way too long. Thank you so much for doing this. Mantle not only released two more books on the case, one a collection of hypnotic regression sessions, and the other focused on new witness accounts. Who knows what new smoking gun will fall on his lap and motivate him to write yet another book on the subject, stuffed with copy-pasted stuff from his previous works, when you finally get to listen to this episode. I should check. Hold on. Future K is going to go check. Future K here. So there are, let's see how many. 1, 2, 3. There are 3 Pascagoula books. It doesn't look like. No, thank God. The last one was published in January of 2025. Nope, March 5th, 2025. Okay. All right. Well, thankfully, nothing new has been posted about that. Cool. Back to you, Past K. So, what happened that night? What actually happened that night? One of the more out there theories is that Hickson and Parker were so drunk that night that they, like some other Pascagoula residents reportedly that week, mistook an Odome, I'll find out what that is, Odome model building pictured in the extras, so it will be up definitely for Patreon, and maybe in social media. An Odome model building under construction by Siegel Construction Company on U.S. Highway 90 for something else. The structure does resemble their initial description of the craft, with a dome on top and round window-like features along the sides. Another fun theory suggests they were victims of a Russian psyop. The incident happened near Ingalls Shipbuilding, a major U.S. defense contractor during both World War II and the Cold War, and a key builder of warships and nuclear submarines. Hickson had also previously worked there, which has fueled speculation among some that he may have had connections worth targeting. The craft was actually a Russian submarine, and the aliens were Russian frogmen involved in an intelligence operation. The site was located under a highway and near 24/7 toll booths. Not a single toll worker noticed anything unusual. The Ingalls shipyard itself had security cameras covering the entire area, yet they didn't capture anything strange that night. As the saying goes, cameras don't lie. It's interesting how key new details tended to surface around times when money was tight or new opportunities were available. For example, in Parker's case, after his divorce, he became extremely active on the UFO circuit, and new recollections or expanded versions of the story were shared in connection with appearances at conventions. It's hard to overlook all the red flags. The lack of physical evidence and the convenient gaps in the story make the Pascagoula abduction feel less like a close encounter of the fourth kind and more like a fishtail. Okay. I want to give a few final thoughts, and then we'll wrap up. And because this episode has also gone over an hour, we'll get the hell out of here, right? So, I want to start off by saying that I think the original abduction happened. I absolutely think it happened. I think that Hickson and Parker had this experience and then didn't know what the fuck to do with themselves for the rest of their lives afterward. Regarding the cameras and toll workers not seeing any of this, there is a lot of discourse in alien abductions being psychic, alien abductions being in your mind, which does not mean that they don't happen. I think there's a decent chance that whatever these beings are, call them aliens, call them fae, call them ultra-terrestrials, things, spirits, whatever you would like to call them, I think there's definitely a psychic element to it. And if you want to read more on that, I suggest John Keel, Greg and Dana Newkirk, Jacques Vallée, all great people to read. I I think that the original abduction happened, whether it was completely physical, half psychic, or all psychic. And I think that after the fact, they didn't know what the fuck to do. It turned out for Hickson that he really liked attention. He liked being in the spotlight, so he ran with it. He did whatever he could to maintain his spots. He did whatever he could to get his name in the zeitgeist and keep himself in the limelight. And Parker, I think the money definitely has something to do with it. He realized finally that he could, if anything came out of his trauma, it could at least be a little money to make his life easier. I really feel for him in particular. I think that he suffered one hell of a trauma, and it being the 70s and him being a cis man, would not go to therapy, probably didn't even recognize that therapy was a thing. And then let me tell you, he gets put into a mental institution for a little while. Nope. That man was fucked. And then you add in all of the hypnosis and the regression therapy and all of that, and people putting more ideas into his head and Hickson, and for Hickson into Hickson's head. They didn't stand a chance. I think that things would have been very, very different had they never gone under hypnosis. And I think that we wouldn't question the Pascagoula abduction as much as we do. My theory, I don't even want to call it a theory. My very, very ungenerous thought that I had earlier when Parker was describing his awful encounter with the female alien, or Femalian, if you will, is that this poor man has some sexual abuse trauma. Somewhere in his life, he was sexually abused, and it came out as an alien abduction instead. I have a feeling this is not the last time I will be hearing something similar. I had the thought. Now let me tell you, this is based only on what I just read, okay? I had the very uncharitable thought that Hickson abused Parker that night and made up a story because it traumatized Parker so much. And I hope to God that that is not true. I don't know. It was a thought. At the moment, there's really no background for it, and I hope that it never comes to light that there ever was. And I hope that Hickson really was just like a friend and a mentor to Parker. Genuinely. I hope that. But in the end, I think, unfortunately, not through total fault of their own, their true story and their trauma got mixed up in a bunch of other shit with a bunch of other bad people, and now we question all of it. And now their memories are a little bit sullied because there's a ton of people out there that think none of it happened because the later stuff is so muddled and so far-fetched and so attention-seeking. So yeah, that was the Pascagoula abduction. That's wild. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we talked about it for 2 hours. That's it for this week, friends. I said at the top, but I've got an Instagram. It is at Alien to Me. Haunted Mitten has all those social media things except for TikTok because we're old and we can't figure it out. And it steals all your information anyway. And I have enough programs that do that. So I don't want any more. I'm good with what I've got. In fact, even Instagram is starting to really drive me nuts. Make sure you turn off all of those permissions, kids. Do not give Meta a single ounce. A single note from your voice without them really working for it. Haunted Mitten has a Tumblr that I'm going to start using more now that I've remembered that Tumblr exists and that despite all its faults, it's still probably the best social media thing on the internet. If you have anything you want to talk to me about regarding ufology or the phenomenon or even paranormal stuff, You can email contacthauntedmitten@gmail.com or find us and DM us on any of the social medias. We will be happy to talk to you. We love talking to people, and anybody who can give me further insight, especially on ufology, oh my God, go for it. I am here. I am open. I am here to learn, friends. All right. I am now going to go rest my voice and maybe make some dinner. So, I still don't have a good one day. I gotta remember to make a sign off for this. Oh well. Bye.